Woman who came to the U.S. illegally in 1994 from Mexico returned to Mexico in 2016. She went to ask for an immigration pardon for breaking the law by coming to the United States against the law.
If that process sounds complicated, it was. She wound up waiting in Mexico for a year and a half, separated from her family. So her husband contacted clergy, then elected officials, and finally got some action. Reporter Maya Saenz has the story tonight.
Yep, Craig, Jen. Maria Olvera moved to the U.S. from Mexico when she was 18 years old to be reunited with her husband, who was granted asylum in the U.S. from Guatemala in 1993. She considers herself American, but after a long immigration process and being held in Mexico, she can finally say she's back home.
I consider being in this country to be a privilege.
Maria Olvera says there's not a day she's not grateful to be in the U.S. Mainly because for over a year and a half, Olvera and her family lived in uncertainty of whether she would have to leave the U.S. for good. Since 1994, Olvera and her husband Carlos established their lives in Omaha. They had 3 daughters, bought their own home, and started their own carpet cleaning business. But living in the U.S. illegally meant she could be deported at any time. In January 2016, she left Omaha and traveled to Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, unsure how long she'd be gone, to await a pardon from U.S. immigration for coming to the U.S. illegally.
I hadn't been back to my home country in 23 years. For me, it was start all over, adapt all over to a foreign country, Mexico. For me, this is home. I'm not from the U.S., but I feel like I am.
But after months and months of being held in Mexico and waiting for the embassy to resolve her case, Carlos reached out to his church, Papillion Mayor David Black, and ultimately Congressman Don Bacon.
She brought me here illegally, but she never did it for something bad. She always thought about her future.
Bacon called the embassy on 2 occasions asking on the status of Olvera's case, but that alone sped up the process and gave Olvera legal status.
In this case, she was wanting to get right with the law. She had a heart for making it right, and I respect that. She could have been silent and tried to stay below the surface, right? And she didn't.
So after a year and a half of living in her home country, a now foreign country, Olvera is finally back home with her family. Olvera and her oldest daughter are now legal residents. They're now continuing their process to become U.S. citizens. Reporting from the studio, Maya Saenz, 3 News Now.